one of the best. You got him four abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaw.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
It might not be a perfect season on points anymore, but with a full win separating himself from his nearest rival, Olenek is still sitting pretty. Today, the Lotus 49 drivers return to the States for the first time since round 3 at Detroit. In stark contrast to this tight street course, Circuit of the Americas has plenty of wide open space. But this is a notoriously technical circuit and will put everyone's fancy footwork to the test. We'll see who's got their dancing shoes on as we get ready to watch round 8 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Samuel Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. COTA is more closely associated with modern Formula One, with it being built specifically to lure the series in. So to see how they did that, let's take a closer look at the track. Welcome to Circuit of the Americas. The cliche of everything's bigger in Texas rings true for this track in the Lone Star State. Built specifically for Formula One, the number of corners, circuit length, safety features, and general track amenities immediately set this place apart from almost every racing course in the United States. Of the 3 layouts available, the most widely used is the Grand Prix circuit, which tops out at a whopping 20 turns along nearly 3.5 miles. Many of them have been modeled after well-known sections of European tracks such as Silverstone, Hockenheim, and Istanbul. But compared to those venues, this place still has lots of unique challenges. Turn 1 in particular features the largest elevation change from the lap and culminates in a blind and sharp hairpin. The penultimate corner is just as tough, with its off-camber apex and sudden drop forcing many to escape to the paved runoff on the outside. And though it was meant to lure F1, many other series have now raced here, ranging from IndyCar to WEC, IMSA, and even V8 supercars. Track days are also common, with the SCCA running all types of amateur events to allow up-and-coming drivers to feel what it's like to battle on the same tarmac as Vettel and Hamilton have. With this track, American race fans finally get to experience a purpose-built course made in the modern day. Texas went bigger and better, and in the process, raised the bar for their peers. You can see just how fancy some of these facilities are around here, with it being built so recently and with a good chunk of money behind it, of course. But Sam, the question is, how are the drivers going to handle it? Because these are very different machines compared to the modern F1 cars that race it today.
Being born British, Joe, it's weird seeing here in America and fancy thrown in the same sentence. But okay. Yeah, here is our fancy circuit, the Circuit of the Americas. Fairly modern, even though it's coming on 10 years old now. I guess we can stop calling it new eventually. Located down in Elroy, Texas, just outside of Austin. A lot of elevation change. Doesn't have the greatest of flow of racetracks, but that's why some people love it. It's definitely a challenge, such as almost like a Virginia International Raceway in a way. And of course, when you're talking about the Lotus 49 cars, you're talking about cars that struggle to go in a straight line without flipping over. So, you know, you throw these S's in here and all the heavy braking zones and passes where you can make crossover moves, and we could be in for something interesting today.
And they've raced here before, but it's been a while since they've returned to this track. So some of the newer drivers could have a bit of an adjustment to try and tackle this thing. Speaking of the drivers, we have a drivers' championship. So why don't we take a look at the F1, which is their pro championship that they have in this series. Rob Olenek, as I mentioned, well ahead of Marco Kika right now, who moves himself into second place since last round. Daniel Sadro down in third is followed by Roman Pawlowski, who has got a very fierce fight going on with Peter Mikus, who's been looking pretty fast in the warm-up, but not fast enough to beat Rob Olenek from what I've seen thus far. They also have an F2 championship. This is the amateur championship. Sam, let's take a look at that.
Yeah, this keeps things interesting, especially when you have a championship as close as this is. You could see a tie at the top of the standings there between David Rossi and Pascal Tremblay. And just 15 markers back is Bill Tyler. Andreas Bruno and Don Good, don't count either of them out too. They are not too far behind. Although, as I say that, I don't see. Oh no, Andres Bruno is in the session today. He is in the number 14 car.
Yep, and they will have to finish a little bit higher to really get back into things, of course, but it's a little bit more chaotic down there in the mid-pack fighting for this AM Championship. Let's look at the constructors as well. That is done by nation in this series, interestingly, so they call it the Nations Cup instead. Now, U.S. is leading by a wide margin over the United Kingdom. And then it's got about the same gap back to Finland, as you can see, where things finally tighten up between themselves and Germany, who have certainly been in a little bit of a tussle to try and sort out the final step on the podium. Canada could yet also still get into things, but have got a little bit of ground to make up themselves before all is said and done. What's today's race going to entail, Sam? Do you have the details for us?
Yeah, okay, I do. Then they're coming right here on screen for you. It is round number 8 of 12. Of course, this being an official iRacing series, those are always 12 weeks long. 20 laps around COTA today, and open setups. These drivers can tweak their setups to make the cars to their handling so they handle good, or rather handle less bad, around a tricky track in a tricky car. And at 17 incident limit is the incident limit. So if you put wheels off, or if you spin, or if you crash, you're going to accumulate incident points. 17 of those, you're out. Hopefully these drivers will be clean today, Joe, if they want to win. And who knows, if they win, they might celebrate by treating themselves to a couple of gifts or two. Where would you go if you were going to treat yourself to a gift?
Well, before I get to that, I want to give a quick mention that we have the iRacing Esports Network broadcasting this. And make sure and subscribe. All you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe, and you won't miss a moment on IESN. If I was going to get myself a gift, I think I might go to our merch store. GSRC, that's right. We have a merch store, a merchandise store that you can buy stuff with GSRC on it in case you want to support the channel or tell everybody where you watch your sim racing, including you can get shirts from there. And now we've put some incredible technology into these shirts that actually give back massages just by wearing them. It's incredible stuff, these new shirts that we've got in there. So give those a look. Check them out. The price is pretty good considering you can walk around and feel like you've got a spa hanging around on your back. So definitely worth trying to check out. And I think I might get some of those for Christmas. Maybe one for myself and a few for friends and family. That link is in the description below if you want to check out the merchandise store. Right now in qualifying, speaking of the incident limit, the drivers have to keep a clean lap if they want to get one in. Marko Kika certainly didn't get a clean one on his first lap, but it is Rob Olenek who's got a clean one, and he is on provisional pole.
Yeah, and the lap times are quite long around here. They're actually a tick over 2 minutes, and we had an inaccuracy on our graphic a moment ago. This is actually a 16 lap race, not a 20 lap race, so that knocks off about 8 minutes between us and finding out who the leader is going to be. Right now, as you mentioned, the leader in qualifying is Rob Olenek by about 0.3 of a second over Kane Lasky. This is a single split race, Joe, and that for the drivers battling for points, that might make things a little bit trickier. A win might not be worth as many points as if it was a top split. So if you don't want this race to be a drop week, if you want to get a good handful of points, you're going to have to finish up front.
Watching Olenek come around to finish his second lap with just about a minute to spare. A 2:04.5 was his first, and it's a 2:04.9 for his second lap, about a half a second off. Kane Lasky now has an open goal to try and see if he can take that pole away, and he's got to do it by improving at least 0.3 of a second. 2:04.8 down for him, which is quicker than Rob's second lap. Oh, and he had an off track on that one. So did not count. What about Mikus? I said he wasn't faster in the warm-up. He's also got a long ways to go to try and get faster than Rob on this second lap around. Mikus does improve. It's a 2:04.539, and that is up to pole by 1600ths of a second.
Yeah, the next car around is Johnny Bell, but he's been off course. That's why he's been in the pits. We got Chris Murakami is out there, as well as Ove Tradre. He sits in 5th place. He's been known to have good performances in the past, but there's a spin there for Chris. And fortunately, the drivers have the session to themselves, but the clock runs down to 0, so none of those going to count anyway.
Yeah, a number of drivers didn't get laps in, but our pole sitter for this grid is Peter Mikus. Rob Olenek is going to be next to him, who's won the majority of the rounds so far. Kane Lasky starts in 3rd, and Dave Price will be P4. Then in row 3, you've got Ove Trangrade in 5th position. Daniel Sadrot, who is outside in P6. Marco Kika, who is 2nd in the championship, is starting in 7th out there today. He's got some ground to make up. Pascal Tremblay will be starting in 8th. Chris Murakami in 9th position. And then you've got David Rossi rounding out your top 10.
About 5 seconds back of pole here, you have Andrew Wren starting in 11th ahead of Johnny Bell. Telmo Amaro will be starting from 13th ahead of Colin Coker. He was the last driver to set a competitive time in qualifying. 4 drivers didn't: Colin Bentley, Bill Tyler, Andres Bruno, and Gary Anderson. Getting ready for a tricky start here, Joe. Coter has that long climb up the hill into the first turn, the left-hander hairpin. Not unusual to see collisions there.
Yeah, we'll have to watch and see if anybody is on a single screen monitor, because it can be harder to navigate through there, especially all this traffic. If you can't see to your sides and know exactly where everybody is. Waiting for the last 2 drivers to grid up here today for round 8. This is going to be tough. Will we see anybody blink out because they've ran over the incident limits? It can be easy to push the limits of this track and rack those up pretty quickly. You can see just how tall that climb is up to the first corner. Very steep hill and a decent run up to that braking zone. As the last of them get out there, the engines start to rev. The lights are up and the green flag is out here for round 8. Peter Mikus, not that great off the line, but at least ahead of Rob Olenek as they come up to the braking zone. Olenek under attack from Lasky down to his inside, and he goes way wide. Lasky manages to get into 2nd behind him. Everybody clean through that first hairpin as they start to weave into the S's, Sam.
Yeah, everyone throughout the whole field, but this is tricky too. The way the track goes left and right back here, still so much double file. Wild racing, we got Chris McCarmy, the rear end of his car stepping out, avoids any collisions though. Boy, they'll still bunch together, Joe. All of these drivers having to stay on top of their game right now.
Ove Trangrade is one of them that's losing out quite a bit, as he was almost up to 3rd, and now he falls down to 6th position. Up at the front, though, it is a 3-car breakaway. You can see Mikus, Lasky, Olenek all coming down to start the run down the backstretch. Very long acceleration zone off of here, and getting the power down smooth will be critical.
Drivers will finally have a bit of a time to relax as they go down this back straight. Some of them will think about making a move on the car in front of them. I see Chris McCarmy and Pascal Tremblay are quite close together, but no move being made right now. So right now, it is Peter Mikus leading, Kane Lasky, Rob Olenek in 3rd.
Ooh, Marco Kika gets a good run on Trangrade. This is for 6th position as they come into the stadium section. Trangrade on the inside of the first hairpin, but it's going to switch back, but Kika has to slot back into line and try again later. Ooh, big slide, though, that we can see there up ahead with Ove Trangrade as we ride on board now with Kika.
Now going through this long triple apex right-hander, kind of inspired by the old turn 8, I think it was, at the Istanbul Park at Turkey. Now working their way through turn 19, the controversial track limits corner, and then through the final turn, back out onto the main straight, the complete lap, 1 of 16. And looks like, hopefully knocking on wood here, Joe, that every driver has completed the opening lap without incident. Oh, Colin Coco's lost the connection.
Sad to see that we only have 17 running here. Up into the first corner. Whoa! A little bit wide there for Kika. Oh, and behind him, Tremblay, and a nice fight with Murakami. Murakami almost loses the position. They're going to be side by side down to the S's, but eventually Tremblay gives up the ghost.
Yeah, these are numbers you wouldn't normally think would be fighting each other, the 5 and the 15 cars. So I think maybe Pascal is a little upset with how Chris is driving. Maybe Chris is sliding around a little bit because he's all over the back of him. Chris got this position from Pascal at the start, and yeah, Pascal might think about trying to get it back.
Of course, Pascal fighting for that F2 championship. As they come down into turn 10 once more. Very tight hairpin, another spot where it's easy to lose that apex, and everybody trying to get back on the throttle. Up and down the hills of the backstretch. Tremblay looking still relatively close. I wonder if he'll have another go down into the braking of 12.
Oh, he's definitely close enough. He's going to stick his nose out. He's a little bit late on the brakes, but I think Chris should be able to cover him off. Does Pascal have a braking ability? Oh, doesn't matter. He says, I'm going to go on the inside of you anyway, but that puts him on the outside for this right-hander, and that could pay to Chris's advantage. Oh, now there's contact between them, and now Pascal has the upper hand. He has the inside for the next corner.
Tremblay aggressive through here, trying to get this spot away with his elbows out once again. Very little room between them at the apex. Hard fighting in the very early laps. We're only on lap 2. Eventually, not enough grip on the outside as he goes for the over-under, and the track is blocked. Murakami parks it at the apex. This is bringing them in to David Rossi and Andrew Ang, both again fighting for that F2 championship. This is not what Tremblay wants. He continues to go on the attack, looking at almost every corner.
Yeah, and while these two have been battling, that's allowed the cars in front to run away. And in fact, there's a change for position going on in front of him. Marco Kika has got a run on Ove Trantre. He's looking to the outside at the top of the hill, but Trantre is able to hold him off. Further back in this battle, Chris Murakami has gone in way too deep, and that's going to cost him a position. So Pascal finally gets it.
That bumps Tremblay up into 8th. This is great stuff in the mid-pack. Let's take a look at the replay. Not sure if we're looking at Tremblay's pass or what we saw with Kika and Trangerade. Looking at Tremblay's pass, it looks like. It's all set up here, Sam, coming off the final corner. Look at that. He didn't even need the whole track. He didn't track out completely.
Yeah, so a lot going on this third lap. Battles and position changes. Another position that changed actually, hands this lap, was for second place. Rob Olyanek has found his way by Kane Lasky.
Yeah, we were so focused on that. Let's take a look at how that happened, because it was out of the same corner, but a different fashion from what we saw before. In fact, this was a very wily move by Rob Olyanek. Look at the turn 2. I don't think I've ever seen a pass in turn 2.
Well, you have now.
Makes it stick. Kane Lasky down to 3rd. Olyanek up to 2nd, but he's got work to do. Mikus is up to 1st, and he's ran away by about a 1.5 seconds. This is good news for Mikus because he's been at least there or thereabouts much of this season, Sam. I know you're hopping in a little bit here, but he's been challenging Rob, but Rob tends to be the faster one, and now seems to be a good time for him to make a charge and see if he can get back in this championship as Rob spins the tires out of the final turn.
Yeah, a bit of a kick out of the back of Rob's car there. You might be able to see over the pit wall the car of Johnny Bell was sitting in its pit stall. It's got a bit of damage on it, but right now we're keeping an eye on this battle for second because Kane has ran Rob back down after that little mistake Rob had out of the final corner last lap.
Keeping them under pressure as we follow them through the S's once more. Even though these cars have a lot of suspension travel, you can see those, they're just glancing those little pyramid curbs, still incredibly tall and can upset the car exactly when you want it planted. Now climbing up the hill and getting to one of those tricky spots, trying to get the power down up and out of turn 9 here, Sam.
Yeah, Rob Olyanek is racing a little scrappily, I think. Maybe Kane, that's why Kane's over the back of him. We'll try and get the back. It's also worth noting, Joe, that the weather is changing a lot. It was completely overcast a couple moments ago, and now the sun's out and the track's hot. The temperature changes in iRacing aren't as drastic as what they were about half a year ago, but still something the drivers might have to be aware of.
Now, 102 degrees, so it's still pretty slippery out there on the surface. An appropriate Texas afternoon. as they're adjust at 2 p.m. virtual standard time. And did Kika lose a position? We got a battle going down at turn 12. Side by side with Ove Trangarade to his inside down into turn 12. And now it switches back into the hairpin at 13 into the stadium section. Trangarade having the inside. Excuse me, no, Kika having the inside rather. Trangarade now switching back to the inside himself as it goes left once again. And he's not going to have the desired line coming through. Oh, maybe it doesn't matter. Look at that. Deep on the brakes. Tries to come back at him, and he makes it stick. Look at that.
That was almost an oval pass what Ove did there. You know, having the longer way around, he was able to carry more speed, pinch Marco down on the inside a little bit, and Ove Trangarade takes a spot. And as these two battle, that allows Pascal Tremblay to run him back down a little bit, and we know how Pascal races from earlier.
Wow, this is incredible stuff between these two. Gloves are off, and Ove using every trick in the book, sliding it through the first corner, but managing to stay ahead of Kika for the moment. Now down plunging into the S's, back and forth they go. And he's going to have to stay in line. You can see how much the hands are moving around trying to keep these cars underneath them.
And keep an eye as we watch this battle, keep an eye on the left-hand side of your screen at the leaderboard, because even though we've been watching Rob and Kane run and slide around for second place, they're closing up on our race leader a little bit.
Absolutely, and it's down to 1.1, so we'll jump back to that if it gets any closer, but down the hill into turn 11 once more. Ooh, and in fact, it is getting close enough that we need to glance here. But you can see visibly how much smaller the gap is between Olenek and Mikus. Dean Lasky continuing to apply pressure to the number 1 car.
Yeah, I think I was giving Rob an unfair hard time earlier. I was saying, look how much he's sliding around. I think everyone's sliding around at some points during the race. It's obviously working for him. He's running Peter down, and well, the interval at the line last time around was 1.4 seconds. You can see on the dynamic timing on the left side of the screen, it's actually back up to 1.4 now. So it's staying stable, but still fairly close. And honestly, I'd be feeling a little bit more comfortable if I was Rob now than if I was Peter.
Yeah, as much as it came down, Peter seems to have responded in the latter half of this lap as they come across the line. A 204.8, 204.9 for Olenek, whereas Mikus ran a 205, so still a tenth quicker. But the fastest lap went to Lasky last time by. You could see up on top of the screen a 204.8 that he ran. That's actually, is that quicker than qualifying? Yeah, that was.
And the little scrap we have going on for 6th place is still going on. Ove Trangarade holding off ahead of Marco Kika. But yeah, like I say, Joe, this could be a 3-car race between Micah, Solyanek and Lasky. And whenever you have a 3-car race for the lead, you've also got to keep in mind the driver in 4th, who right now is David Price, who's having quite a quiet race. He started 4th in the number 4, is running 4th, and set to finish 4th right now. But who knows what could happen.
We'll jump back to Trangarade and Kika, still battling for 6th. Speaking of quiet races, ahead of them, Daniel Sadro looking at a top 5 today. He's kind of just all on his own, about 4 seconds behind Price and 4 seconds ahead of Trangarade. I'm sure he's happy enough with that, as this track is difficult enough on its own. So just kind of doing his own thing. There is the number 2. Trangarade keeping Marco Kika at bay by about half a second, so no attack this time through this set of corners like we saw before. Take a look at some of our fighters for that F2 championship. David Rossi and Andrew Ang currently trying to settle who gets the last of the top 10.
Yeah, and that's always a spot you want to have. You always love saying you finished in the top 10. There was a puff of smoke in front of him when we cut to this shot. That was Chris Mikami, I'm going to assume, locking up ahead of him in 9th. He's not having... well, he started 9th, so he's not having a bad race, but he has a number 5 car, so I'm sure he would have liked a little bit more. who knows if this could turn into a three-way battle. As you see, Rob Olenek turn the fastest lap of the race, just 1 second back of Michael.
Yeah, that was about 3/10 cut off that time by. Staying with this fight, though, coming across the line themselves. Oh, a little bit of a slide from Rossi. Now, Murakami, he does have a pretty high I rating, but he's a bit of a newcomer over here, and he's more known for driving over in the Spec Racer Ford. So this is a bit of a transition for him. As a look to the inside from Andrew Ng into the first corner, starting to get aggressive on that red car of Rossi.
I played devil's advocate on the Spec Racer Ford argument there, saying that those cars are about as tricky as these cars to drive. But yeah, no, it's Dave Rossi holding on to 10th place right now. Andrew Ng trying to get by, but they've pretty much been in this position all race, Joe. They're exactly where they started. So, and you know, we're almost at the halfway point of this race and no change in position yet. So maybe Ng will have to start getting a little bit more aggressive.
So we take a look at that podium. And it's funny that you mentioned that because we're seeing a lot of crossover between those series. So it seems those cars have enough relation because, of course, Daniel Sadro fighting for the championship regularly over in the Weekend Warriors. He's here and has been a regular in this series for a while. He's brought Murakami over. Billy Bob Wright has made the transition over to the Weekend Warriors as well, almost in reverse. And the drivers have both described it as a driver's car, both of these, the Lotus 49 and the Spec Racer Ford. So I guess that they've become good training tools between them.
The Spec Racer Ford reminds me of a cat. I absolutely love it until it suddenly decides all of a sudden it wants to lash out at you and decide to kill you, which is what the Spec Racer Ford does. It behaves very nicely until all of a sudden it says, okay, I want to crash into the wall now. This is getting intense up front here, Joe. Rob Olenek is just 0.7 of a second back of Mikas now.
Once again, faster last time by a 2:04.7 for Rob Olenek. Mikus with a 2:05 flat, another 0.3 quicker. He's closing in. He's got the car underneath him. And we keep hearing Mick Claridge talk about the tire pressures in these cars and how he tweaks them for qualifying and then changes them for the race. I wonder if Olenek has maybe altered them to be a little bit better later in the run. And now they're starting to come together, and it's down to 0.5 of a second. We're only halfway through the lap. He's closing in to where he could be within striking distance here, Sam. All it's going to take is a small mistake from Peter.
Yeah, and then vicious pass by Rob. But yeah, I think you could be onto something there, Joe. Obviously, the sun has been out for most of the race. Occasionally, we're getting some cloud cover. The track temperature, though, is quite warm. And also, there's so many parts on this circuit. We're coming into one right here. You're going left, and then right, and then left, and then right. And your tyres never really get a break, so they are getting a lot of temperature build up in them. And if you do have a setup that's a little bit kinder to them, maybe that will pay you dividends towards the end of the race. Whatever reason, Rob Olenek definitely seems to be the man who I'd be putting my money on right now if I was back in Vegas.
Rob still closing in. It stayed at 0.5 of a second since they went through turn 10. So maybe this second half of the lap is where Peter a little bit stronger. Let's see what it'll be as they cross the line. It's going to be 8 laps to go. Oh, that's a big slide from Mikus. And this is going to give an opportunity to Olenek. He knows it. He immediately ducks to the inside. No cover from Peter. In fact, he's going to hold to the racing line now that there's a nose in from Rob Olenek. Breaking into turn 1. Can he make the apex and make it stick? The answer is yes. Olenek up to the lead. He's going to have a little bit of a challenge through 2, but nothing doing. Rob now solidifies that first position.
I wonder if Miku's basically surrendered that position after the mistake. He knows Kane Lasky is also back there, and maybe that's why he didn't want to waste too much time fighting Rob Oman for the Awakening, because he knew he didn't want to drop all the way back to 3rd place. So, you know, he could kind of see the writing on the wall. So Miku's able to hold on to 2nd right now. We'll see if Kane Lasky can do anything with him.
Down into 11 once more. Rob Olenek made his own mistakes early on, but seems a lot smoother now. Maybe the tables have turned as Peter got a car that's going away in reverse of what we're seeing with Rob Olenek. He's close behind, and he's actually getting a little bit of slipstream here. Oh, he's very late on the brakes, but he only closes in. He can't manage to get his nose down to the apex first, so they're going to stay in order. Olenek, Mikus, Lasky. They've stretched away about 5 seconds from Dave Price in fourth position, rather. So no threat behind them from him.
Yeah, I think that might further solidify the theory there that Mikus is content to just ride in second. Well, not content. I'm sure he'd love a lead back, but you know, just knowing that the fight's not worth it on the basis that Kane Lasky is all over the back of him. But that being said, Dro, maybe that's just his thinking right now. You know, it's the middle of a race. Rob Olenek has run a couple of hot laps. Because you mentioned Mikus... Oh, another big slide for the final turn there. You mentioned Mikus has been close to victory and would really love to get one. I'm sure he'd still like to get it, but he knows that right now at this stage of a race, things aren't going in his favour. What have we got going on back here?
Yeah, this is 5th place, and, you know, as much as I said Sadro was all on his own, well, Trangrade decided to make a liar out of me and run him down. The 6th place driver has got within striking distance, but it's not going to help when he outbrakes himself. Oh, maybe not. Wow, he found the apex. Just a very different line from Daniel Sadro through that first corner.
Yeah, and the battle for second just heating up as well. Lasky has latched right onto the back of Miku's, I don't even know, gearbox maybe. I can't say rear wing or rear bumper. He's all over the back of him. Here they come down the hill. So obviously the key here will be which one of these can get through the hairpin better, get the run down the back straight. Does Lasky want second position? Well, we know the answer to that. It's yes. Can he get it? Well, the answer to that right now is no, because he did not get the wide exit that Miku's was able to get.
Lasky sees Rob Olenek pulling the gap, and he knows he's got to go now. Unfortunately, that attempt into the backstretch has denied him a chance to do it out of the backstretch. So he's a little bit too far back to attack there into turn 12. He's got to set up for a little bit later. But the gap between Mikus and Olenek already up to 1.4 seconds between them. Kane's got to hustle. They've only got 7 laps to go, and that's going to quickly be 6 laps to go because they're almost done with this lap itself.
Did Kane Lasky blink out on your screen there a little bit?
He did on mine.
Yeah, okay, you did. Yeah, so that's not good. You got the battle back here, Joe.
Yeah, this is Rossi and Ang still trying to sort out P10. But once again, Ang not able to try and get to his inside down at the back of the backstretch. These two fighting for the Formula 2 championship, but not for the Formula 2 lead, I don't believe. We need to check to see who our top driver is in that.
Big mistake. That will cost him a little bit of time. And like I say, he's been riding right behind Rossi pretty much the entire race. So he needs to get on with it if he wants the top 10, and who wouldn't? Just like Lasky needs to get on with it if he wants second place, and who wouldn't? But it's easier said than done in these cars, because it's tricky enough to get them around this technical course going 1 wide. At some point when making a pass, you've got to be 2 wide, and you've got to make sure you don't smash it up.
Back to this battle for 5th position, and Sadro with a mistake of his own through the S's. Way off course and almost losing it, sliding the car. They do come together. The prophecy was foretold, and unfortunately it looks like Sadro is going to give up the position to Trangrade, who is able to continue on. Hopefully they didn't get damage from that. Kika now getting on the back of them. Marco Kika taking a look down into turn 11, but not close enough.
Wow, things getting tight there, and things were getting tight for second place as well as those two came out onto the back straight. Lasky attempted to do exactly what he did the lap before and actually got into the rear wheel of Mikus. There was a bit of contact between them. Hopefully there's not about to be contact here. Here they go.
Kika trying to demote another position down for Sadro, and he's going to do it. He sneaks through Sadro with the over-under. trying to come around the outside into the hairpins, but that's a very difficult ask, and that is not going to work. So 2 spots lost in 1 lap for poor Daniel Sadro. He is in 7th, Kika up to 6th, and Trankray to P5. If we have a replay on what happened between Mikus and Lasky.
Yeah, I think this is what they would call on iRacing, Dro, a 0x, where you get into the other car, but it's not enough to register as an incident point. I think that's what we saw between Mikus and Lasky coming out on the back straight last lap around. It's worth noting, Rob Olyanek is only a second up the road still.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't run away more, and we unfortunately don't have the replay. A little bit of predictive commentating there from Sam with Sadro and Lasky both finding themselves making contact in overtakes. Unfortunately, now down to 5 laps to go. Just wanted to clarify, because we keep talking about that F2 championship. Well, they do that by I rating in this series, and that is 2,500 and below, if I remember correctly. I'll have to have someone tell me if I'm wrong. Well, as that was another move down into the first corner. That was Ang and Rossi once again. Rossi going to stay ahead of Andrew. Our leader in that F2 is Tremblay, up in 8th position. So this is a battle for 2nd in the F2, but the points are still awarded according to overall position.
And well, also want to keep an eye on this battle and talk about this battle, but I want to give a shout out to the entire field, Joe. This is a single split and all 18 cars are still running. Johnny Bell, who was in the pits for repairs earlier, Colin Koku lost the connection earlier, every car's still out there on track.
Yeah, impressive that both have continued on, but again, there is a lot of runoff room as we take a look at Tremblay, who might not hold this 8th spot very long because Chris Murakami has caught him. Now, Murakami might not be in the F2 championship, but he obviously still wants both the points and the pride of taking one more before all is said and done. It is still a race.
Yeah, 5th place was getting a little bit tight a couple of turns ago as well. It's broken back up now, but Kika was right on the gearbox of Trandray, but Trandray has put about half a second on him. Oh,
did we have a mistake from Olenek? Because Mikus is down to half a second.
Yeah.
And it's reversed.
Yeah, mentioned this in a passing moment a moment ago, Joe, that it was down to 1 second, and now, like I say, it's even closer. The only theory I can really come up with, other than a mistake from Olyanek, is that maybe he really heated up his tyres when he went on that sprint in the middle of a race. Now,
you can see a car in the background. They've just lapped Colin Coker. I wonder if it was lap traffic that brought things back together here, because that would explain why Kane Lasky has also fallen away from them. The battle has completely changed shape here with 4 laps to go, and they come onto the backstretch once more. Mikus might actually have a chance here if he gets a good run off the corner. It's looking pretty decent. Is the slipstream going to be enough? Yes, they do indeed get a slipstream on these cars. As much as they are a cigar-shaped tube, they punch a decent hole in the air. Oh, but as they break for the corner, he's just not quite close enough.
Yes. Nice little run there from Mikus. I went back to check on what Colin Coker was doing, Joe. They caught him at the end of a lap. Well, of course, the end of a lap, you've got a lot of twists and turns. And so, yeah, that did hold Rob up a little bit. And then he let all 3 of them by once they got around to the front straight. But the damage was done. It's bunched them all up. And we're about to come to 3 laps left to go in just a couple of turns' time here. And now still 3 cars that can win this race. And Dave Price sitting there in 4th, having his quiet race, who could emerge a winner if this gets too crazy.
Yeah, there's less than a second separating these top 3. That's how close it is. They're going to get more traffic because Gary Anderson is the next one in front of them now. They're going to catch him on the front stretch, though, and Gary sees it coming. He's going to let them all through. Nicely done by Anderson. That keeps from interrupting the battle, although I'm sure Mikus would have liked another opportunity like before. But they break for turn 1. Mikus stays in 2nd. Wow, very different line. Every of the top 3, all incredibly different lines through that first turn.
They might catch the lapped, damaged car of Johnny Bell. I think that's the only lap traffic they may still have to deal with. So hopefully we'll see a good old-fashioned fair fight between these guys. Still have a couple of battles going on further back in the field, and we'll keep you abreast on those. But right now, the winner's in question with less than 3 laps to go.
It's the Grand Prix Legends series. Of course, it's going to be old-fashioned. Now, fair? I'd argue that it probably will be. These drivers tend to be very sportsmanlike with one another. In most cases, they race each other week in and week out. With this being a small community, Rob Olenek has really ingrained himself in it in the past year or so and made himself a fixture. Peter Mikus also relatively new in terms of things, but still now a regular, and then Kane Lasky is a returning regular. And this time, Peter Mikus much closer, but still not close enough that he's willing to risk the car down to the apex.
Yeah, and going back in my mind, Joe. Oh, story times later. This is too intense.
Well, I'm curious to hear now what exactly it is. We're going to be 2 to go at the line. Mikus getting right underneath him. Look at that as we ride on board with Kane Lasky watching this battle up ahead. Inches to spare between the 2 cars down through each corner. And they come up to the penultimate turn. This is a tricky one with plenty of runoff, but you got to be smooth because there is a passing opportunity into the final corner. All 3 of them nice and easy through there. All right, the penultimate lap itself is now starting, and they are all equidistant apart. The podium barely separated here in the dying stages of the race.
Yeah, unless the driver would have got into the back of Olenek a couple of turns ago when they all bunched up there. Miku, I think he got on the brakes a bit harder than he would have liked, and that, I mean, it hasn't cost him too much. He's obviously still all over the back of Rob. Just a couple of turns ahead of him now is Johnny Bell, so Rob will be hoping that he doesn't catch him towards the end of a lap. Working less than 2 laps left to go now. So tricky to do this part of the track. Left, right, and if Rob has heated up his tires, of course his car won't be liking him here.
He's looking pretty good right now. Maybe he's got it back underneath him once again. In fact, it is Mikus under attack from Lasky at this point, who continues to close in. We haven't seen Lasky up into second place since the early part of this race, so I'm not sure if Lasky has anything, and he's going to give it a go down into the corner. He's given space, but it doesn't quite work out. And look at how good this is for Rob Olenek. He's pulled it out to 0.8 of a second. This is the gap he needs to have a nice, calm end to this race.
Yeah, and Mikus and Lasky both running identically painted cars, so they're Nations Cup teammates to my understanding, but that doesn't seem to matter right now. They want to be in front of each other, or Lasky wants to be in front of Mikus. Mikus says, no, I want to be the one to get this done. The problem is, as you mentioned, Joe, as they scrap like this, that allows Olenek to pull apart. Oh, that's the second time they've almost came together this race, and this time it might pay out in Lasky's favor. Are they about to go side by side through the right-hander?
Not quite, as Mikus manages to edge ahead through Turkey. Kane Lasky can't do what we saw earlier from Trangarade and go around the outside, but now it is stretched up to 1 second between Olenek and Mikus. And something happened to Ang, I think, as he just lost his spot to Tyler, but we'll go back to it later. That was for 11th position. In the meantime, Kane Lasky now falling off of Peter Mikus. Could that have been their only opportunity? Will they come back together in the final lap because the white flag is out?
Ooh. Mikus is very deep. He was right. He was about 10 car lengths back of Rob Olenek, and all of a sudden he was on these rear gearbox going through the hairpin, and so it looked like he had overshot the first corner, but he hadn't. He was able to hold on the second place. If anything, it's proof that he wants that win from Rob Olenek. Again, they have the lap car of Johnny Bell just a corner ahead of him right now. I don't know if that will end up becoming a factor. Rob Olenek will hope not, because right now it looks like he's got this in the bag.
Olenek got pipped to the pole. He started in second, but he's looking to finish in first as they come up to Johnny Bell, and he immediately moves over as he comes onto the backstretch, seeing what's happening. He's not in a battle, so he can let them all through. making sure he doesn't interrupt things. They are going to stretch apart down the back stretch this time. Olenek well clear of Mikus. It's going to take either a mistake from Rob or something desperate from those behind. They're just a little bit too far back.
I'd counter that, Joe. I think Mikus has actually caught Olenek quite a bit here. I know they were spread apart on the back straight, but that's the accordion effect for you. They're about to accordion here because this is a very slow turn, and Mikus trying to come in hot. He comes out a little bit worse because of it. Now I would agree with you. There's really 2 turns left where you can attempt to pass, and Mikus would have to do something daring if he wants to win this race.
He starts to fall back out of the triple apexer. Second corner to go, and unfortunately a little bit too far back. Just can't get to the rear of Rob Olenek, so Rob is going to take another victory here today in Texas. Miku second, Lasky third, barely a second separating them at the line. Price with a fourth. It never came to fruition, unfortunately. That the front group tangled, so he will settle for that P4. Trangrade with a well-earned fifth.
Yeah, most of the battles have actually spread apart. Pascal Tremblay has about a second on Chris McCarmy for 8th and 9th. P10 might still be up for grabs with Dave Rossi ahead of Bill Tyler.
Wow, where did Bill Tyler come from?
16th on the grid.
He managed to get Ang and then came forward and is trying to get Rossi, but it's too little too late. Tyler was one of those that didn't put a lap in if he started 16th. So a little bit out of position, and that could have bit him in the end because it'll settle for 11th.
And give a shout out to Pascal Tremblay. He had an aggressive race. He started 8th, finished 8th, but he did it in number 15 cars, so kudos to him.
Yeah, Pascal, of course, finishing the highest of our F2 drivers, but that's going to take us to break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, but stick around because on screen you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back here to round 8 at Circuit of the Americas for the Grand Prix Legends Series. And in the end, Rob Olenek may not have started in first spot, but he finished there, and that's what counts. He was ahead of Peter Mikus, who did take the pole and couldn't hold him back, but certainly gave him a good fight. They were within a second of one another pretty much the whole race long. Kane Lasky stayed with it, but he finishes third. Then Dave Price, just outside the podium, takes P4 with the top 5 completed by Ove Trangrave. He had a great fight with a few of those around him. There's Marco Kikas finished 6th behind him in the end, but Daniel Sadra, who's given a little bit of apology for the touch that he had with Ove Trangrave, fell to 7th. I wonder if he got some damage that hurt his handling after that contact. Pascal Tremblay finishes 8th with good point scoring for his F2 championship. Chris Murakami takes P9, and David Rossi is the one who settles out that top 10.
Phil Tyler did a nice job to work his way up from 16th to 11th. Andrew Enck comes home in 12th. Unfortunately, he was going the wrong way there at the end. Andres Bruno, he finishes in 13th place ahead of Telmo Amaral. Last car on the lead lap was Colin Bentley, all the way back in 15th. One car a lap down was Gary Anderson. And then Johnny Bell was in the pits for a couple laps early on with damage. He ranked 17th at the end. And Colin Coker, an internet connection issue meant he wasn't able to start the race with everyone else, but he was able to get back out there and finish in 18th.
We've got our winner ready to talk to us. It is Rob Ole Nasty who wins today, and you were just barely ahead of Peter. I tell you what, that was an almighty battle from our perspective between the podium. What was it like in the car?
Same thing. It was any of our races. I thought I wasn't even sure about Dave when he came in. I thought he might be able to be up there battling with us too. I'm really enjoying racing with Peter and Kane when they came in the series. It kind of even pushed me to get better, I guess. 'Cause they've come in like Kane last couple of weeks, just had amazing pace, and Peter just has gotten fast so fast. Like I think his raw speed, like in a given lap on the track, is probably the best. I don't know. I hadn't been qualifying that great lately. I put up a good lap. Peter beat it, and then I've been racing better this season. I can kind of get in the zone at portions. Like I was in the zone chasing Peter down. Like I knew I had to get back to him. But I fell out of it after they battled once and I had a little gap. My mind just started wandering, and then it was like I couldn't get it back. And then it was a struggle for the last, I don't know, 5 laps or something like that, where I was just hoping. I was going defensive sometimes too.
Yeah, we wondered about the way that it swung back and forth. Was it just down to the focus, or was setup any part of it? Because it seemed like Peter was stronger at the start of the race, and then the middle of the race, suddenly your car started coming back.
Maybe it has a little to do with tire pressures. I ran 18.5s to start, so and that might be part of my problem in the beginning. But I like the way they feel on the race up later. I've been running, my setup is kind of changed pretty drastically this season. I'm running a good amount of preload. I even normally we don't run much of that at all, if any, and we run like 1 clutch plate. I'm running 2 now. It lets me drive the car a little more like I drive other cars, where I can trail brake it a little bit more. Which is probably one of the reasons why Mick thinks, how the heck does Rob turn this car? Because he's still driving it the way he sets the car up, and mostly everyone did. I'm actually, especially on a track like this where there's tons of tight corners, I can just modulate the brake to control how sharp I'm turning. I think Mick does that too, and the old setups, but I think he does it a little more with the gas than the brake. So I don't know. It seems to be working. So I'm going to stick with it for a while.
Makes me think of that old Mario Andretti quote. It's amazing how many people think the brakes are for slowing the car instead of going faster. As you seem to be very, very fast. Now, up next, we've got an oval round, so it's going to be a completely different beast to what we have now. How do you expect to fare over there as we go to our first circle track this season?
You never know there, but it's going to be fun. I mean, that's the best part about them is it's a battle with everybody, and they're always a ton of fun. So it is what it is, and however I finish, but we'll have fun. I'm going to try and win. See if I can find a good set from an oval guy or something like that.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for it. Should be a fun time getting the seasonal oval track that we now have regularly here in the series. Congratulations on the victory, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks, guys. See you later.
Was Rob Olenek, our winner here today. And up next, Sam is caught up with third place Kane Lasky.
Yeah, Kane, congrats on your podium today.
Thanks, guys. It was a pretty good race.
It almost seemed like you were a little bit content to just ride in third place there at the end. I'm guessing that's not the case, though. Could you just not get by the cars in front?
Well, I certainly didn't want to settle for third. I kind of set my car up to be strong at the end. And so in the beginning, I could tell Peter was a little stronger, and I didn't want us to get into a battle and let Rob get away. So I just let him by. And I thought, we'll fight it out at the end. And I had a few shots, but Rob went wide once down, I think it's turn 11, the tight corner before the back straightaway, and it kind of fouled Peter up a little bit. And I had a good run, but I couldn't see them, so I had to get on the brakes. And then 2 laps to the end, Peter made a big mistake, and I had to really get on the brakes because I didn't know. Sometimes in this car, when people make a mistake and they run wide, if they don't give it to you, you're going to end up colliding like at the track out point, and it's not easy to see or turn your head. So, I just gave him space, and then I wasn't able to really get back on. And, third place is better than being in the gravel trap.
There was one moment, though, maybe 2 moments. I recall one down in the hairpin, turn 11, I believe it is, leading you out onto the back straight. You took an inside line, and the car in front of you took an outside line, and it looked like there may have been slightest of contact on exit. Was there 0X?
I didn't feel any contact, and I didn't get any X's. I don't think we did. And generally, I had a fast car today, but not a car where I felt like I could push. And so that was pretty much the story of my race. Like, didn't really have the confidence to stick it in there. And it was a strange race. Like, the weather was a lot warmer than the rest of the week. And normally my setup was better in the warm. But I changed my gearing to a shorter gearing. I had taller gearing because I thought I would need some draft. And with the grip in yesterday's conditions, taller gearing actually didn't work that good. So today I went in with a little bit of a different setup. And overall it worked well. But like I said, just didn't work out for me today. Both of those guys ran a good race and, didn't make very many mistakes, certainly not any big ones.
All right, well, you got a podium today. Who knows, though, we might see you win a race or 2 more before the end of the season, maybe even at the Oval next week.
That should be interesting.
All right, well, thanks for coming to talk to us. That was Kane Lasky out there, place finisher.
Good to hear the perspective of the trailing car in that fight, but we've got to close up today with that being our last interview. And a big thank you goes out to the Lotus 49 community for bringing us back for another bit of coverage here, another season of coverage for the Grand Prix Legends Series, and also to iRacing for bringing us onto the iRacing Esports Network once again. Make sure and subscribe. All you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Sam, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. Our Twitter is @GSR Channel, Facebook, Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram, GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store. It's at gsrc.storeenvy.com, or if you want, the link is in the description below here on YouTube. Next race is going to be at Michigan International Speedway. That's right, they're doing an oval in these cars. That's going to be Saturday, November 9th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Change your clocks here coming up soon, because we're going to be at a different time next week. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.